actually looks brighter. That's interesting. Camera looks better over there. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. Whatever. All right, guys, let's just dive in anyway. I wanted to talk about mind training. And as you go further back into your mind, how to be prepared for some bumps and bruises. Now, the reason for this is to establish peace of mind as you train your mind. And that's what we're after: peace of mind, sense of relaxation. Oh, that's a little better. A sense of serenity about it all, the human experience. To establish peace of mind, you have to face in your mind and forgive chaotic emotions, chaotic feelings that are buried in there. You don't get peace of mind by trying to engage in positive thinking and burying all the chaotic fears, guilt-based emotions, grief, rage, all the stuff that all of us, everybody watching this video or listening to this podcast, all of you have buried this stuff from earlier in your life. And if you think it's not there, you're lying to yourself. And there's a very good reason for that. You're not enlightened. An enlightened being masters their mind. They go all the way through the dark night of the soul, the subconscious rage that we've all buried in fear and pain and guilt when we separated from God and we made up this whole silly world. So you want to prepare yourself literally and figuratively for bumps and bruises. And there you go. If you see on the video, that's one of the bumps and bruises that I acquired today. I slammed my arm into a garbage can, and it stung for about 5 to 10 minutes. I really got it good. You could see the black and blue. And there's a rip here where I slipped and fell today after the dog low bridged me. I was off balance on the road, and I was like sideways going down a hill, and the dog just slammed into my knees, knocked me over. I fell flat on my hand, on my side, some cuts, and I'm fine, but on gravel, so it did hurt. It did hurt. It cut me up pretty good. But this is what happens, like these types of literal physical in the body husk, if you will, experiences tend to unfold the deeper you go into your mind, because the more you train your mind, the more you engage in mind training, and it's really ultimately going back into your mind, going deeper, and observing how your whole quote unquote human experience is your mind. That's it. And the experience that you appear to be, well, you're projecting it, that you appear to be seeing and perceiving is your mind being reflected back to you 100% of the time, always. That's how powerful the mind is. It's infinitely powerful, except most people don't train their mind. So there's this part of their mind where there's the whole mind, or like decent chunk, that thinks in the mind. Now, this is just in the mind, victim. We call it victim mentality, but the idea that the mind could be victimized, or that we can. So it appears that it's the outside in deal. But when you train your mind and you keep going in, go farther back, go deeper, you will find that it's all your mind. That's all that's ever been happening. But going further back into your mind, and my preferred manual book guide is A Course in Miracles. You could find that on acim.org, or you find that on Amazon as well. I'm sure you'll find it in other spots too. It's a guide for mind training. One of the fundamentals of the book is the idea, the concept, the truth that as you dig into your mind, you train it and you go back, you will find fear for sure, and also guilt. Heavy guilt. Now, the ego usually projects these onto worldly special relationships, as the book says. These are relationships we have with bodies, people, stuff of the world. But ultimately, the book explains how this just paralyzing, crushing guilt, quote unquote, manifested when we, maybe that's what happened, we split from God. There appeared to be a split because we're in reality spirits with unlimited minds. Yet, since most people don't train their mind, they don't go in there. They don't want to go in because they don't want to deal with the bumps and bruises, literal body stuff, mentally, wading through this fear, terror, horror, shame, embarrassment, grief, guilt, wanting to, suicidal thoughts, suicidal feelings, blind rage. Like, it's in there. Don't worry about it. And if you want proof, turn on the freaking news. You're welcome. That's all the proof you'll ever see. It's an insane world because people don't train their mind. But the Course, Jesus in the Course talks about going back and uncovering, understanding that there's guilt there. There's a ring of fear and there's guilt. And in the world, we project that onto our relationships. Guilty about parents, guilty about kids, guilty about brothers and sisters, and you're guilty about this. I feel bad about that. So as you dig deeper into your mind and you go further back, naturally, organically, by default, you are pure light and love as reality. That's all you are. That's all I am. That's all we ever are. That's all everybody is. Every illusion of body. But we acquire these insane beliefs from the ego, from when past lives, per se, but possibly, but from this human experience, we acquire these insane beliefs from the ego based in this illusory energy called fear. And there's a lot of chaos there when you start to feel the different cousins, let's say fear cousins, guilt, grief, rage, shame, embarrassment. And that, don't worry, it's in there. You're not enlightened, it's there. Even if, positive guy, no. Again, most people don't do this. So when you start feeling these energies and bumping up against them and getting into your mind and feeling these emotions, mentally, it could feel really chaotic. Like, there are some nights where I've just been up 2, 3, 4 a.m. and the mind's just running. And there's all types of emotions in the mind. And it's just the mind. That's all that's happening. But it feels, when I said the title of the video, Bumps and Bruises, or whatever I said on YouTube and Facebook or podcast, it's these bumps and bruises. Like, it feels like you're being beaten up mentally. So if we're going to reach the peace of mind, we have to face, feel, which is our natural organic state. We have to face, feel, and release these unpeaceful, chaotic states of mind. Prep for that, because a lot of people, who don't have trained minds, really haven't been down this road and haven't really done it in just a genuine way, an authentic way for a long time, they'll say, yeah, meditate. Like, they just started meditating. Oh yeah, you meditate and you'll be peaceful. It feels so good. And no, it's like temporarily, maybe, yeah. And predominantly over the long haul, yeah, but meditating allows you to observe your mind as it really is. So there's going to be chaos in the mind and potentially chaos in the body. And by that, I mean different manifestations, but even something like today, where a little, not quite as mindful, the dog undercut me. It was a manifestation of my mind. Rip up my hand, good, bleeding, rip up the side. Then I'm running a couple hours later and boom, black and blue here. And this is something David Hoffmeister, who's the teacher of A Course in Miracles, modern day disciple for Jesus, I like to refer to him as, talks about, and other people who've gone deep in the Course. I mean, he's a mystic. He's just hyper advanced mind-wise, and training his mind for 35 years or whatever. I mean, just 37 years. So, he's light mystic. I'll say for sure a mystic. So he talks about the deeper you get into your mind, how you'll appear to experience chaos in a lot of cases. And one of the manifestations of the ego or whatever, however it really unfolds, is people forgetting things and not being mindful. And it seems like as you're going deeper into your mind that you miss time. You'll be sitting somewhere and then it will be like 5 or 10 or 15 minutes later and you'll be like, I have no idea what happened during those 15 minutes. We were just lost in your mind. Or you'll manifest these experiences that will show you're not being as mindful, which is not a positive or a negative. But again, today, boom, knocking into the garbage can. And I was going within, reviewing, my daily lesson. Shoot, I don't know my daily lesson today. I got to get up to date with it. But you want to be prepared for that. And I think a lot of people, they want peace of mind. They want happiness. They want freedom. But the ego is really afraid. It tries to scare you. And a lot of people are really afraid to go to those places that are going to feel really uncomfortable. So they distract themselves. They're like, I'll get around to it. Or another common one. This is really, really common, guys. People sit down to meditate for 5 minutes. They haven't meditated in the longest time or haven't meditated at all. And after 5 minutes, they're like, I don't like the feeling. I just feel like my mind races uncontrollably. Yeah, welcome to the club. That's all of us. That's how it works. We're enlightened. So as we start, and then even as you get deeper, it just will race because this is what's buried. But rather than feel the discomfort of the mind, which are just thoughts and feelings, just energy waves, people turn around from that and they're like, I don't want to be bumped and bruised. I don't want to feel these unpleasant, uncomfortable emotions. They bury them deeper. They step away from training their mind. And as those fear, guilt, and grief and antsiness and nervousness and anxiety, as that festers in your mind, that causes problems in your life. So if you train your mind and you get in there and I'm like, yeah, things are getting kind of chaotic here, but at least I know I'm digging, I'm going further back, then you'll see progressively that your problems will dissolve because your mind will have changed. Your thoughts and feelings will have changed. It's really quite awesome. It's quite liberating. We're gods, lowercase g, but we're all gods because God gave us this unlimited mind as in reality, these pure love, light and love spirits that just keep going. And the body is it's an illusion. Definitely not real. But again, if you don't train your mind, you will believe that it is. And there's just all of life's problems. You'll see it come from every problem, like ego, the body, fear. You got to go deep. But you have to be prepared to be bumped and bruised. Sometimes physically, other times emotionally. And the emotional bumping and bruising, yeah, you face your fears, terror. What if this person died? What if that person died? And you feel that because it's in your mind. And if you don't feel it, you bury it. You may not come up against in the moment or tomorrow that fear. Yet, you'll be making decisions in your mind. Every decision in your life you'll be making with that terror buried deep down. So what type of decision do you think what type of decisions do you think you'll be making? If fear's calling the shots. Imprisoning decisions that keep you bound, decisions that keep you depressed or broke or enraged or angry or victimized. Look at the world. Everybody, but it almost looks like on a worldly level, like that everybody feels like they're a victim. Most people feel like they're a victim, but it's only because of their mind. In their mind, they see themselves as a victim. So then it manifests. It's not that people are taking advantage of them. They're getting the reflection back to them. They're getting the mirror. That's how the world works. There's all this profit and power on a worldly level now. When you train your mind, you see through it, you see beyond it. Based on people feeling like, believing, knowing that they're victims. And they would rather The ego is so insane, it would rather live a human life of victimhood to all types of elements than just get in there and face and feel some of those fears that are fueling the victim mentality in the mind, for just this, refuse to do it for this terror of facing really uncomfortable emotions. But the joke is, the cosmic joke, if you don't face those emotions now, you will create problems from your mind. They're not coming from outside of you. No. It doesn't work that way. So either you face them now and you start diving into them and you feel that you get bumped and bruised and it's really bumpy and turbulent for a while. And then you train your mind and you develop more of a sense of peace and love and serenity and equanimity and balance and poise, relaxation. So then no matter what unfolds, since your mind's going to be really strong, keep training it, you'll be chill because your mind has changed. You could do that, start that process now, which is, it rocks. It's so much better to live like this way. Or you could say, I don't want to face that. Let me turn on the TV. Let me scroll on my phone. And then not only, you may appear to be comfortable temporarily, but that energy in your mind will find an outlet. It's been finding outlets and it'll find more and more outlets. You're going to run into problems. Like, they're waiting for you. Don't worry, because you can't outfox your mind. So if you're willing to suck it up right now and say, okay, I'm going to face these emotions, even if it feels really unpleasant, then you'll be on a worldly level rewarded. But ultimately, you'll have more peaceful mind no matter what circumstances or situations unfold. And you'll be free and you'll live in peace with love and harmony, and life will rock. Doesn't that sound like a really good payoff? Doesn't that sound like a really sweet benefit of doing mind training and getting in there and feeling the fear and facing the fear and guilt? I mean, look at the world. Don't watch the news for too long, but turn it on and you'll see billions of humans with weak minds that aren't trained, that feel like victims and they're afraid and the world looks terrible. None of this is true. It's all an illusion, but in their mind, they believe it's true. They're projecting these images onto the world because they don't train their mind. So that's what hell is. Hell is the world. Mind training, again, guys, if there's a book, you do whatever resonates with you, however you're guided, but acim.org, A Course in Miracles, it's really worth taking a look into, because it's perfect. And it's so perfect that your ego, I saw a comment the other day, somebody talking about one of the videos, your ego will judge the heck out of it. That shows you how perfect it is. But you make the decision now, okay, I'm fed up. I'm fed up with feeling like a victim, fed up with being depressed, being suicidal, being enraged, feeling guilty, feeling just intense grief. I'm fed up with feeling like I'm at the mercy of the government or laws or politicians or Republicans or Democrats or mayors or governors or presidents. I'm sick of feeling like a victim. And when you get disgusted enough, you will decide to leave the insane, delusional state of an idea that you can actually be a victim when you are a limitless spirit with an unlimited mind. And you begin to uncover this and discover it. And you'll see it's all been in your mind. It's never been about another person. It's never been about a party. It's never been about an event. It's never been about a law. It's never been about a spouse. Never been about a husband. Never been about a wife. Never been about a kid. Never been about an uncle. Never been about an aunt. It's never been about what appeared to be really intense situations from your childhood. I think most of us have had them. Pretty intense situations. Never been about that. It's always been about your state of mind and your mind and your mind. It's always been what's in your mind. Wow. And you start to realize this when you prep for the bumps and bruises and you dive in. And I'm creating this video and podcast and broadcasting it live on Twitter and not Twitter, YouTube and Facebook, and then saving the podcast I'll put on Anchor. Because you have to prep for this, because a lot of people don't talk about the prep work of like, yeah, things can get kind of dicey. And it's just this comfort, but things can get kind of chaotic and they appear to fall apart. But for most of us, we've been making decisions from the ego and a really weak mind, weakened by fear and victim mentality and rage and guilt and just outsourcing everything. Kind of positive way to spirit, but just like, I don't want to deal with it. Outsourcing reality, outsourcing, I don't want to deal with it. That the falling apart process could be very uncomfortable. It could feel very intense. It could be very discombobulating, but it has to fall apart for us to come together. And that means for our mind to come together, to move out of mental illness, mental sickness, and really become, it's whole, but to realize that it's always been whole. And then also on a level of worldliness and bodies to bring the minds together, because we're all ultimately just minds. We're all just minds and spirit. We're all one, ultimately. But this whole breakdown where everything appears to be falling apart, that's what allows us all to come together and live in greater peace and greater harmony. But you got to be ready when you do the mind dive, guys. And a lot of people won't talk about it. Again, I think of like meditating. And they say, oh, yeah, meditating is great. You sit, people just start. It's great. I meditate, peace of mind. It is great until you really stick with it. And then you're going to get deep, deep into your mind. And when you get deep, deep into your mind, the thoughts and feelings that you've been burying in your mind, the guilt for days or decades or lifetime, quote unquote, 50, 60, 70 years, you'll have to feel it. And feeling that is intense. It's very uncomfortable. I'm not talking about, oh, I feel kind of bad. I'm talking about the type of guilt where you feel like, like you've been responsible for someone's death. People that have since passed on projected their fear and guilt onto you, and then you have to live with that. Losing all of your money multiple times, divorce, losing your kids, death of a loved one, death of children. These are these deep, pulsating, visceral fears manifest as the different guilt, grief, rage, hopelessness, depression. That's what you start stepping into when you really get serious about this. But if you're ready for those bumps and bruises and for that intensity, when you unwind those emotions on the other side, your mind gets stronger and stronger. And for the rest of your life, you'll be predominantly happy, feeling at peace. You'll be poised. You won't feel victimized by anyone or any entity. How's that for liberation? You won't be attached to outcomes as much. You won't be attached. You'll just be in the moment. You won't be worrying about the future or regretting the past. And this stuff's going to sound alien to your mind at first, because there's likely going to be a lot of people around you living in the world that don't train their minds, that are going to be behaving in insane fashion. But since most of them are acting insanely from fear, it's going to appear to be normal. So on the surface, they'll appear to live a really good life, or maybe their life's okay, or, but they're kind of afraid, and this and that, they work their job and have their kids. And it's like, when you break away and decide to train your mind, you're going to face the fears that they're not facing. And it's going to be uncomfortable for you to not only face those fears in your mind, but then just the idea of breaking free and moving into different circles. It's how it goes. Would you rather be free? Would you rather be... Who's that weirdo? Would you rather be liberated? Would you rather have peace of mind? Would you rather live your dreams? Would you rather trust? Would you rather know from a high level knowing, just knowing you're taken care of? Would you rather always feel supported? by something invisible and limitless. Okay, hey God, Holy Spirit, Jesus. Would you rather feel these emotions and just feel that, experience that life mentally? Hey, bro, good evening, or almost good morning now, yeah. Well, actually, yeah, good morning. Or would you rather, thanks so much, bury the fear and say, I'm not going to face that, and then face a lifetime of problems? Maybe you have some comfort in there, but depression, problems, you'll feel bound. It's not worth it to trade 30, 40, 50, 60 years of the illusion of comfort for problems, for depression, for unhappiness, freedom. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, but it will make sense to the insane. And by the insane, I'm talking about people that have buried so much fear in their mind that they're making these decisions from fear. And by insane, it's not a pejorative word, guys. I don't mean that in a nasty way. Pejorative, nasty, insulting, demeaning. No, it means living from the insanity of fear. Because fear is insane, because it's not real. The more you get into your mind, you realize it's really not. It's an uncomfortable emotion. You'll experience the fear, but as you feel it and release it, you're like, oh, that wasn't real. Well, no, the fear appeared to be real. It appeared to be really scary, but it's created by the ego, and the ego is not real. None of it's real. But you'll see people that bury it, and then you do really insane things. They bury it in the mind. I'll say people bury it, but the ego buries it in the mind, and then you'll see a lot of insanity. Exhibit A, the news. Turn it on. You're welcome. Turn it off. That's what's going on. All these minds are buried in fear. And that's just, quote unquote, the beginning, but it's not your job to do this. It's your job to train your mind and to dig deeper. And the deeper you dig, you're going to find there's going to be some stuff there. And it's going to feel really uncomfortable, and it's going to feel really intense. So it's preparing for that. And when you know that that's likely it's coming, then it's actually easier to feel those emotions because it won't be entirely unexpected. Maybe there's certain emotions you access and certain experiences in your mind, certain memories that are far more intense than you remembered, but at least you know, like, oh yeah, that Ryan guy was talking on Facebook or YouTube or through Anchor, through a podcast, and he mentioned this, and yeah, it's gonna get dicey there. So you know what? Yeah, this is part of and you'll realize too, it's normal. Like people, the deeper the ego digs into the mind, it starts labeling, judging like the insane clown it is. Normal, abnormal. This is normal. This emotion is normal. This emotion is abnormal. And then it goes down this rabbit hole that has it's illusion, but it creates another layer of suffering. Well, this feels horrible enough as is, whatever. But then there's this abnormal emotion. This emotion feels horrible as it is, but then this is abnormal, which makes me feel even worse. No, it's all normal. It's all what it is. It's not a big deal. And when you have these concepts in your mind, these ideas, then when you start really, whoa, I was going to flip over, diving into some real deep muck, some real shadow, some dark night of the soul, the shadow, then through that intensity, you'll still have the idea that this is what happens. And that's the path. The path to peace of mind is not just be peaceful, force it. No, you have to feel the chaotic energies that are waiting, the very unpeaceful emotions in your mind that are blocking the peace. That's where peace is. It's not like I've seen on one of David's videos, there's someone he was doing a video with who mentioned how she had always been taught in the world, calm down, don't be angry, just calm yourself, compose yourself. That of the world, the insanity of the world, the ego, that was the way to be calm, to have a calm persona. Meanwhile, she'd bury all her fear, her rage, her guilt. It just kept bubbling up. She kept having problems because it was all in her mind. She wasn't facing the fear, the rage, the guilt. She was suppressing it. Then when she started to actually express it and started screaming and punching pillows and crying, and I've been there many times, In her mind, when she faced these energies, these emotions, and she felt them, the bumps and the bruises, then she started to develop predominant over time, with, I say over time, but as she unpeeled the layers, like the onions, layers of an onion, then she started to become more peaceful. And she realized it wasn't about suppressing the rage and then trying to create this thin veneer, this facade of peace over years of, I won't say years, but over like just heavy rage in the mind. It's feeling the rage, then you get rid of it after you feel it, and then there's just peace left. But the rage, that's the bumps. Those are the bruises. When you decide to live your dreams and you're like, I'm going in, going in, I'm doing this full bore. There'll be a lot of mind training there because you'll start seeing in your mind all the fears that you clung to that blocked your dreams. And they're only in your mind. And when you see and face those fears, it's going to be intense. And you hear that from so many entrepreneurs who fail with so many businesses and run into all these struggles for so long. They're doing mind training. Some of them don't even realize it, but they're seeing, okay, I have these aspirations, these grand aspirations and these ambitions, or, even having the vision where it's maybe not as much ego-based, but I really want to bring the world together and create this, render this generous service or whatever. And they realize as they're going along, like, man, I didn't know I was afraid of all this stuff. And they run into a lot of struggles. And the ones that stick with it, they face, feel, and release the fears. They go deeper in their mind, deeper, and they develop the peace of mind first and the abundance mentality and the trust. It just feels so good mentally. And then they see more worldly success reflected back to them. And it's all about the emotions anyway, and the service and the fun. And the worldly success is like just add-ons or bonuses or extra icing on the cake, cherry on top. But they saw all the bumps and bruises they had to experience. That was all part of the journey. They had to face these fears. It wasn't going to happen any other way. Are we half hour in already? Oh yeah, 32 minutes. All right, guys, that's good. It's about 6:30. Dinner pretty soon. Oh, it's a mosquito bite, or is that one of the? Could be a mosquito bite, but also could have been when I slammed into the road before. Guys, it will get dicey. It will. That's just the way that it is. So prepare. Not so much prepare, like brace yourself when I say that, but just know that when these wild emotions unfold, that it's totally normal, it's natural, it's par for the course. I mean, those are illusions on a course level, on a Course in Miracles or mind training. They're definitely illusions. Yet it's normal and natural for people that are digging into their mind to face these intense situations, to face these strong emotions. It's totally cool. That actually shows that your mind's really strong and that you're training it, because you're getting into the emotions that have blocked your happiness, your love and peace, and that have caused you to make decisions from, a weaker mind, decisions from fear and scarcity and lack, and decisions that imprison you mentally and even physically. And I'm not talking about literal prison. I'm talking about doing things for 30, 40 years just to get numbers on a screen. You're afraid to face the fear of poverty or the fear of sickness. Like, it's not normal or abnormal, but it's normal to dig into, when you're digging into your mind, I should say, when you dig into your mind, it's normal to face these emotions. But then as you release them, oh, it was a mosquito. You'll have forgiven yourself and forgiven these concepts, but you kind of look back and say, all right, my life appeared to be very normal, but I was doing things that would consider to be very abnormal for this infinite spirit with unlimited mind. It's just the more you start to realize who you really are and you're beyond all of this, then you just want to get deeper in your mind and train more. And that's what I'm creating this video. It's to help you guys, of course, and then allow these ideas to become more deeply embedded in my mind and to keep training my mind. So guys, I'm going to roll. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to share it with the world so we could spread the word and encourage people to train their mind, and to let them know that you'll be facing the bumps and the bruises and the fear and the discomfort and the agitation and the anger and the guilt, like that's going to come up and it'll be intense. But when you feel it and let it go, it unwinds those emotions. So then you slowly, surely, progressively, you be mentally who you are organically, naturally. Love, light, peace, relaxation. And you see these qualities in babies. When the spirit moves into the baby puppet and the spirit's like having these baby experiences. Babies just like, we look at the human personality, ego, and we just think, oh, that baby as the child grows and going for what it wants and being in the moment. But it's even beyond that. It's just that spirit in the baby puppet. It's just like, yeah, that's what it is. This mind. It's really quite amazing when you start getting deeper into your mind and just start observing the world and you see that like it's an illusion, but it's all in your mind. And the more you train it, intense in moments, but when you unwind these fears and these illusions, then the intensity goes down and it just gets easier and easier and easier, and you become more free and more liberated. So that's really where it's at. Thanks so much, guys. Ta-ta Facebook. I'm going to roll. We'll keep that and live video later, YouTube and podcast